Paul Clifton Anthony George Sr., born May 2, 1990, is an American professional basketball player for the Philadelphia 76ers of the National Basketball Association, NBA. Nicknamed PG-13, he is a 9-time NBA All-Star and 6-time member of the All-NBA team, as well as a 4-time member of the NBA All-Defensive team. George played high school basketball for Knight High School before playing 2 seasons of college basketball for the Fresno State Bulldogs. He was selected by the Indiana Pacers with the 10th overall pick of the 2010 NBA Draft and earned NBA All-Rookie second-team honors. He was named the NBA Most Improved Player in 2013 when he also earned his first All-Star selection and led the team to their first Eastern Conference Finals trip since 2004. George suffered a broken leg in 2014 while competing for a roster spot on the United States national team for the FIBA Basketball World Cup. He missed most of the 2014-15 season, but recovered to become an All-Star again in 2016, when he also won an Olympic gold medal. He was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder in 2017 and played 2 seasons for the Thunder before he was traded to the Los Angeles Clippers in 2019. The Clippers appeared in the playoffs 4 times during his tenure, including their first trip to the conference finals in 2021. George signed with the Philadelphia 76ers in 2024. Early life. George was born in Los Angeles County in Palmdale, California, and is the son of Paul George and Paulette George. He grew up with 2 older sisters, Teosha, who played basketball at Pepperdine, and Portala, who played volleyball at CSU San Bernardino. George idolized Lakers star Kobe Bryant, and he grew up rooting for the Los Angeles Lakers and Los Angeles Clippers. George spent most of his free time playing basketball at the park or one-on-one against his older sister Teosha. He attended Knight High School and played for Pump and Run of the Amateur Athletic Union, AAU, where he played with Drew Holiday. High school career. George attended Knight High School in Palmdale. As a sophomore, he began the season on the JV team and was moved up to varsity after the season started. Recruiters began noticing George during the summer of 2007 when he competed in AAU tournaments. Sensing George's potential, his coach handed him a leading role his senior season. That year, George led Knight to the Golden League Championship and was named the Golden League Most Valuable Player, the Antelope Valley Press Player of the Year, and a member of the Daily News 2007-08 All-Area Boys Basketball Team. He ended his senior year averaging 23.2 points and 11.2 rebounds. George was not considered a major prospect by colleges. Rivals.com labeled him as a 3-star recruit and ranked him 20th among a class of California prospects that was highlighted by Drew Holiday and DeMar DeRozan. George verbally committed to Santa Clara, the first school that offered him a scholarship, but he later decommitted from them because his high school coach thought he should keep his options open. After a positive experience attending Teosha's Midnight Madness event at Pepperdine University, George committed to Pepperdine on August 9, 2007. Midway through his senior season, he decommitted from Pepperdine after coach Vance Wahlberg resigned from the program. He ultimately chose Fresno State over offers from schools like Georgetown and Penn State because it was closer to home, which allowed for his family to watch his games, and because he liked the campus. College career. George played 2 years at California State University, Fresno, more commonly known as Fresno State. In his first game with the Bulldogs, he scored 14 points in a winning effort against Sacramento State. The following game, George recorded 25 points and 10 rebounds in a losing effort against St. Mary's. Despite the loss, he made an impression with his one-handed slam dunk over Mickey McConnell that earned him SportsCenter's #1 play of the day for November 18, 2008. On February 9, 2009, he scored a then career-high 29 points to lead the Bulldogs to an 88-82 victory over Boise State. In the 2009 WAC tournament, the Bulldogs were matched up against Hawaii and advanced to the quarterfinal against the top-seeded Utah State Aggies. During the game, he forced a career-high 5 steals and finished with a team-high 16 points in a loss against the Bulldogs to a score of 85-68. With a 13-21 record, the team failed to qualify for the 2009 NCAA tournament. He led the Western Athletic Conference, WAC, in minutes played, 1,176, and finished second in three-point shooting, 44.7%, steals, 59, and steals per game, 1.74. His three-point field goal percentage was the third best in the Fresno State Bulldogs men's basketball program. He started all 34 games and finished the season averaging 14.3 points, 6.2 rebounds, 2.0 assists, and 1.7 steals per game on 47.0% from the field. Entering his sophomore season, he was named the most entertaining player in the West region and the 8th most entertaining player in college basketball by Sports Illustrated in their list of the top 16 most entertaining players in college basketball. On January 21, 2010, he sprained his right ankle against Utah State and missed the next 4 games. He made his return on February 11th, scoring a career-high 30 points in a winning effort over eventual WAC tournament champion New Mexico State. During the 2010 WAC tournament, he recorded 22 points and 11 rebounds in a loss against Louisiana Tech in the quarterfinals. The team finished the season 15-18, with George averaging 16.8 points, 7.2 rebounds, 3.0 assists, and 2.2 steals, while shooting 42.4% from the field and 90.9% from the line. He was named All-WAC second team and ranked second in the WAC in free throw percentage, 90.9%, steals, 64, and steals per game, 2.2. On November 10, 2019, George's number 24 was retired by Fresno State. Professional career: Indiana Pacers, 2010 to 2017. Pre-draft and rookie season. On March 31, 2010, George announced that he would forego his final 2 seasons of college eligibility at Fresno State and enter the 2010 NBA draft. He made his first appearance on a 2010 mock draft on Draft Express a month into his sophomore season. By May 2010, mock drafts such as Draft Express, ESPN.com, and The Hoops Report predicted that George would be selected 12th overall by the Memphis Grizzlies. 2 days before the draft, Mark J. Spears from Yahoo Sports wrote an article about an anonymous Eastern Conference scout stating that in 5 years, Paul George will be the best player to come out of this draft. Hoping to draft Derek Favors, the Pacers had discussed a draft trade with the Nets that would have sent Danny Granger and the 10th pick to the Nets for Devin Harris, Yi-Jan Lian, and the 3rd overall pick, but the deal fell through. George was invited to sit in the green room during the draft and was selected 10th overall by the Indiana Pacers. He became the highest NBA draft pick in Fresno State history. On July 1, 2010, he signed his rookie contract with the Pacers, a 2-year guaranteed deal worth $3.9 million, with team options for a 3rd and 4th year. On October 27th, George made his NBA debut against the San Antonio Spurs, playing 23 minutes and scoring 4 points on 1-5 shooting. In a game against the Washington Wizards, he knocked down 5 three-pointers and finished with a then-career-high 23 points. George averaged 7.8 points, 3.7 rebounds, 1.1 assists on 45% shooting in his first season, starting 19 of his 61 games. For the 2011 playoffs, George was one of only 2 rookies from the 2010 NBA draft to be in the starting lineup for his team, the other being Landry Fields for the New York Knicks. In the playoffs, the Pacers lost in 5 games to the Chicago Bulls, led by Derrick Rose. Upon completion of his inaugural season, George was named to the 2011 NBA All-Rookie Second Team. 2011-12 season. On February 3, 2012, George recorded 30 points, 7 three-pointers made, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 5 steals, and 1 blocked shot in a win against the Dallas Mavericks. George was selected to compete in the Slam Dunk Contest and Rising Stars Challenge during the 2012 NBA All-Star Weekend. In the Slam Dunk Contest, George completed a 360 degrees windmill dunk in the dark and dunked over teammates Dante Jones and Roy Hibbert. The windmill dunk is when a player brings the ball below their waist and with an outstretched arm swings the ball into the rim. However, he lost the contest to Jeremy Evans. He finished the 2011-12 lockout-shortened season with averages of 12.1 points, 5.6 rebounds, and 2.4 assists on 44% shooting. George started all 66 games for the Pacers in the season. After beating the Orlando Magic, who were without Dwight Howard, in 5 games in the first round, the Pacers lost to the eventual NBA champions, the Miami Heat, 4-2 in the Eastern Conference semifinals, with George making just 19 of 52 field goals. 2012-13 season. During his first 2 seasons in the NBA, George played mostly the shooting guard position. However, with Danny Granger missing nearly the entire season due to knee and calf injuries, George began playing the small forward position and became the go-to offensive option for the Pacers in his 3rd season. On November 21, 2012, George made 9 three-pointers en route to a career-high 37 points in a victory against the New Orleans Hornets. The 9 three-pointers broke the franchise record for most three-pointers made in a single game, surpassing Hall of Famer Reggie Miller. George was named the NBA's Player of the Week for the first time in his career in December, winning 3 straight games against Cleveland, Philadelphia, and Detroit. He recorded his first career triple-double in a victory over the Charlotte Bobcats on February 13, 2013, finishing with 23 points, 12 rebounds, 12 assists, and 2 steals. That same season, George was selected to play in the 2013 NBA All-Star Game in Houston for the first All-Star selection of his career. He recorded 17 points, 3 rebounds, and 4 assists on 7 of 13 shooting in 20 minutes for the East in a loss against the West, 143-138. George averaged career highs of 17.4 points, 7.6 rebounds, and 4.1 assists, and was the only player in the league with at least 140 steals and 50 blocks. At the conclusion of the regular season, he was named the NBA Most Improved Player. In Game 1 of the Pacers' 2013 NBA Playoffs first-round series versus the Atlanta Hawks, George recorded his first career playoff triple-double, tallying 23 points, 11 rebounds, and 12 assists in a 107-90 win. It was the first postseason triple-double by a Pacers player since Mark Jackson had one in the 1998 playoffs. On May 13, 2013, George was named to the NBA All-Defensive Second Team. George led the Pacers with 18 points, 14 rebounds, and 7 assists in Game 4 of the Eastern Conference semifinals against the Knicks on May 14, 2013, in a 93-82 victory. In Game 1 of the 2013 Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat, George made a 3-point field goal at the end of the 4th quarter to tie the game and force an overtime period. During overtime, Dwayne Wade fouled George with 2.2 seconds remaining. Despite George making all 3 free throws and putting his team up 102-101, the Pacers ultimately lost as LeBron James drove in for a buzzer-beater layup. The Pacers lost to the Heat in 7 games. To cap off a great 2012-13 campaign, George was named to the All-NBA Third Team. 2013-14 season, George with the Pacers in 2014. On September 25, 2013, the Indiana Pacers extended George's contract, electing him to be their designated player. The extension, which would start at the end of his rookie contract in 2014, was a 5/30ths designated player extension, 5 years and 30% of the salary cap, subject to passing the Derrick Rose test. George had to be elected to one further All-NBA team at any level, or be the MVP during the 2013-14 season to qualify for the 30% extension. If he met either of these criteria, the 30% extension was estimated to be worth around $90 million over the 5-year deal. If he had failed to meet the criteria, he would be contracted at 25% of the salary cap. The Pacers started the 2013-14 season 9-0 for the first time in franchise history. George finished with 31 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals in a 99-91 victory over the Detroit Pistons. He then posted 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists during a 91-84 win over the Toronto Raptors on November 8th. The following day, he scored 24 points and added 6 rebounds in a 96-91 victory over the Brooklyn Nets. For his efforts, he was named Eastern Conference Player of the Week. With 9 wins to start the season, Indiana became the first NBA team to start the season 9-0 since the Dallas Mavericks in the 2002-03 season. The Pacers' undefeated streak ended at 9-0 against the Bulls on November 16th. On December 2, 2013, he scored a career-high 43 points, along with 3 rebounds and 3 assists, in a 106-102 loss to the Portland Trail Blazers. The following day, George was named Eastern Conference Player of the Month, the first time in his career, for the month of November, while leading the Pacers to a 15-1 record. The Pacers finished the regular season with an incredible 56-26 record. In the 2014 playoffs, the Pacers eliminated the Atlanta Hawks and the Washington Wizards in the first 2 rounds. In Game 4 against the Wizards, George scored a then-playoff career-high 39 points. The Pacers were eliminated in the Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat for the 3rd straight year. For his efforts, George was named to the All-NBA Third Team, which qualified him for the full 30% extension and All-Defensive First Team. Paul George driving to the basket while being guarded by Anthony Tolliver in 2014-15 season, off-season injury. Players on the U.S. national team react after George suffered a serious leg injury during the 4th quarter of an intra-squad scrimmage on August 1, 2014. During the 2014 offseason, George was named to the training camp roster for the U.S. national team that would represent the country at the 2014 FIBA Basketball World Cup in Spain. George had been considered a virtual lock to make the roster, but he landed awkwardly at the base of a basket stanchion after fouling James Harden during a Las Vegas scrimmage on August 1st and suffered a compound fracture of both bones in his lower right leg. After George was carted off the court, head coach Mike Krzyzewski addressed the arena, stating the scrimmage would not continue out of respect to George and his family. George quickly went into surgery for the fracture, with a pin being inserted in the leg. While no official prognosis was initially given, he was considered likely to miss the entire 2014-15 season. George, who had said he wanted to play at some time during the season, was cleared to put weight on the leg in late September and was shooting jumpers in practice in late October. He participated in his first full practice of the season on February 26th, 3 days earlier than expected, and was ruled a possibility to play within a week on March 20th. On April 5th, George made his return to the Pacers lineup for the first time since sustaining his leg injury with Team USA. He scored 13 points in 15 minutes and made 2 key three-pointers early in the 4th quarter, helping the Pacers defeat the Miami Heat 112-89. He played out the final 6 games of the season for Indiana, averaging 8.8 points and 3.7 rebounds per game. 2015-16 season, in the Pacers' 2015-16 season opener against the Toronto Raptors on October 28th, George recorded 17 points on 4 of 17 shooting and 12 rebounds in a 106-99 loss. After publicly criticizing the referees following the game, he was fined $10,000. On November 6th, he scored 36 points in a 90-87 win over the Miami Heat. 3 days later, he scored 27 points, including a career-high 19 points in the first quarter, to lead the Pacers to a 97-84 win over the Orlando Magic. On November 24th, George scored 40 points and made 7 three-pointers, part of a franchise record 19 by the Pacers in a 123-106 victory over the Washington Wizards. On December 3rd, he was named the Eastern Conference Player of the Month for games played in October and November. George led the Eastern Conference and ranked 4th in the NBA in scoring, 27.2 ppg, helping the Pacers win 11 of 13 games after an 0-3 start. 2 days later, he scored a career-high 48 points in a 122-119 overtime loss to the Utah Jazz. George competed for the Eastern Conference in the 2016 NBA All-Star Game in Toronto, where he started and was the game's leading scorer with 41 points, finishing 1 point shy of the All-Star Game record set by Wilt Chamberlain, 42, in 1962. On March 19th, he had a 45-point game in a 115-111 loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. George helped the Pacers return to the playoffs in 2016, finishing as the 7th seed in the Eastern Conference with a 45-37 record. On April 16, 2016, George played in his first playoff game since 2014, as he scored 33 points in a Game 1 victory over the second-seeded Toronto Raptors. In Game 5 of the series, George scored 39 points in a losing effort, as the Pacers fell behind 3-2. The Pacers went on to lose the series in 7 games. Following the 2015-16 season, George joined the United States national team for the 2016 Summer Olympics. 2016-17 season, George defending LeBron James in 2017. In the Pacers season opener on October 26, 2016, George scored 25 points in a 130-121 overtime win over the Dallas Mavericks. On November 1st, he scored 30 points, including Indiana's final 12 of the game, to rally the Pacers to a 115-108 win over the Los Angeles Lakers. On December 10th, he scored a then-season-high 37 points, including 13 straight in the fourth quarter, to lead the Pacers to a 118-111 win over the Portland Trail Blazers. On January 29, 2017, he scored 33 points in a 120-101 win over the Houston Rockets, matching a career high by topping the 30-point mark for the 4th straight game. On March 15, 2017, he made 6 three-pointers and scored 27 of his season-high 39 points in the second half of the Pacers' 98-77 win over the Charlotte Hornets. On April 2, 2017, he had a 43-point effort in a 135-130 double overtime loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. On April 14, 2017, he was named Eastern Conference Player of the Month for games played in April, in which he averaged an NBA-high 32.8 points, 8.2 rebounds, and 4.5 assists. The Pacers went 5-1 during this stretch and were able to get a spot in the playoffs for the 6th time in the last 7 seasons. In Game 3 of the Pacers' first-round playoff matchup with Cleveland on April 20th, George scored 36 points, grabbed a playoff career-high 15 rebounds, and finished with 9 assists, 1 short of his second postseason triple-double. After leading 74-49 at halftime, Pacers went on to lose the game 119-114 to go down 3-0 in the series. Iman Shumpert defending Paul George in 2017 Oklahoma City Thunder, 2017-2019. 2017-18 season. On July 6, 2017, George was traded to the Oklahoma City Thunder in exchange for Victor Oladipo and Domantas Sabonis. The Thunder acquired him in spite of his pending free agent status the following year, and George's stated preference to join the Los Angeles Lakers in his native Southern California. In his debut for the Thunder, in their season opener on October 19, 2017, George scored a team-high 28 points in a 105-84 win over the New York Knicks. On November 10, 2017, he scored a season-high 42 points in a 120-111 win over the Los Angeles Clippers. He made 13 of 22 shots and had 9 rebounds and 7 assists. After starting the season with an 8-12 record, the Thunder improved to 20-15 with a 124-107 win over the Toronto Raptors on December 27th. George scored 33 points against the Raptors and went 7 of 10 from three-point range, tying the Thunder record for three-pointers in a game. On January 20th, 2018, he had a 36-point effort in a 148-124 win over the Cleveland Cavaliers. On January 27, 2018, George was named as a replacement for the injured DeMarcus Cousins on Team LeBron for the 2018 NBA All-Star Game. On February 1, 2018, he scored a season-high 43 points in a 127-124 loss to the Denver Nuggets. In the Thunder's regular season finale on April 11, 2018, George scored 40 points in a 137-123 win over the Memphis Grizzlies. He went 13 of 20 from the field, including 8 of 14 three-pointers. In Game 1 of the Thunder's first-round playoff series against the Utah Jazz, George scored 36 points in a 116-108 win. He set an Oklahoma City playoff record with 8 three-pointers, making 8 of 11 shots from long range and 13 of 20 shots overall. In Game 4, George scored a team-high 32 points in a 113-96 loss. In Game 5, George recorded 34 points and 8 rebounds as the Thunder rallied from 25 points down in the second half to fight off elimination and beat the Jazz 107-99. The Thunder went on to lose Game 6 to bow out of the playoffs with a 4-2 defeat. George recorded a game-high 8 assists in Game 6 with a scoring total of 5 points on 2 of -16 shooting. 2018-19 season, while he still wanted to return to Southern California, George also loved the situation with Oklahoma City. He decided weeks before free agency began on July 1, 2018, that he would stay with the Thunder and never arranged a meeting with the Lakers. On July 6th, George re-signed with the Thunder to a reported 4-year, $137 million contract. On November 8th, he had 20 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists, and 6 steals in a 98-80 win over the Houston Rockets, helping the Thunder win 7 straight after starting the season 0-4. On November 14th, he scored a then-season-high 35 points in a 128-103 win over the New York Knicks. On December 5th, he scored 25 of his 47 points in the fourth quarter, including a go-ahead three-pointer with 3.1 seconds left that gave the Thunder a 114-112 victory over the Brooklyn Nets. On December 19th, he recorded 43 points and 12 rebounds in a 132-113 win over the Sacramento Kings. On December 22nd, he had 43 points and 14 rebounds in a 107-106 win over the Jazz. On January 29th, he scored 31 of his 37 points in the first half of the Thunder's 126-117 win over the Orlando Magic. On February 1st, he scored 43 points and had a career-high 10 three-pointers in a 118-102 win over the Miami Heat. On February 5th, he scored 39 points in a 132-122 win over the Magic, thus scoring at least 37 points for the 5th straight game. On February 9th, he scored 45 points in a 117-112 win over the Rockets. On February 11th, he recorded his third career triple-double with 47 points, 12 rebounds, and 10 assists in a 120-111 win over the Portland Trail Blazers. On February 22nd, he scored 45 points and hit the game-winning floater with 0.8 seconds left in the second overtime to lift the Thunder to a 148-147 win over the Jazz. On February 26th, George injured his shoulder against the Denver Nuggets, which led to his three-point percentages decreasing from 40.2% to 33.8% on 9.7 attempts per game. Despite this, he was named Western Conference Player of the Month for February and subsequently finished the season third in both MVP and DPOY voting. The Thunder were eliminated in the first round of the playoffs by the Trail Blazers in 5 games, with George scoring 36 points in Game 5. George had 2 surgeries on his shoulder from the game on February 26th during the offseason, with the first surgery being on a partially torn tendon and the other on his labrum. Los Angeles Clippers, 2019-2024, 2019-20 season. On July 10, 2019, George was sent from the Thunder to the Clippers for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Danilo Gallinari, 5 first-round draft picks and the rights to swap 2 other first-round picks, in a trade which helped the Clippers sign top free agent Kawhi Leonard that offseason. After missing the first 11 games of the regular season, recovering from 2 shoulder surgeries, George made his Clippers debut on November 14, 2019, against the New Orleans Pelicans, scoring 33 points in a 132-127 loss. 2 days later, in his home debut against the Atlanta Hawks, George put up 37 points in just 20 minutes in a 150-101 victory. On December 9th, George made his return to Indiana and recorded 36 points and 9 rebounds in a 110-99 win over his former team in the Indiana Pacers. 4 days later, George scored a season-high 46 points in a 124-117 win over the Minnesota Timberwolves, as he and Kawhi Leonard became the first duo in Clippers history to each score 40 points in a single game, with Leonard scoring 42. During the 2020 NBA playoffs in Orlando, Florida, following the abrupt halt of the season due to the COVID-19 pandemic, George drew frequent criticism from NBA fans and media for his inconsistent performance. In 13 playoff games, George averaged 20.2 points per game, marking his lowest postseason scoring average since his 3rd season in the NBA. He shot 39.8% from the field, which was the 4th occasion in his career that he finished a playoff series with a shooting percentage below 40%. George, in particular, was blamed for the Clippers' second-round loss to the Denver Nuggets, in which the team squandered a 3-1 series lead, becoming the 12th team in NBA history to do so. In Game 7 against the Nuggets, George only scored 10 points on 25% shooting and failed to score in the 4th quarter. George's dismal performance in Game 7 included one memorable miss on a 3-point shot attempt in which the ball hit the side of the backboard. In online forums, such as the social media website Twitter, George garnered the nickname Pandemic P, which is an ironic reference to the Playoff P nickname that George infamously christened himself with a few years prior. 2020-21 season, on December 10, 2020, George signed a 4-year, $190 million contract extension with the Clippers. On December 22nd, George scored 33 points, of which 26 were in the second half, to lead the Clippers to a 116-109 season-opening victory over the defending champion Los Angeles Lakers. In Game 6 of the conference semifinals against the Utah Jazz, George recorded 28 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists, and 3 steals in a 131-119 victory, leading the Clippers to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in franchise history. Playing against the Phoenix Suns in his 3rd career conference finals, George scored a playoff career-high 41 points, alongside 13 rebounds and 6 assists in a crucial 116-102 Game 5 victory. The Clippers lost to the Suns in 6 games. 2021-22 season. On October 29, 2021, George scored a season-high 42 points and grabbed 8 rebounds in a 92-111 loss to the Portland Trail Blazers. On December 6th, during a 102-90 win over the Trail Blazers, George sprained his elbow and missed the next 5 games before returning to the lineup in a 92-116 loss to the San Antonio Spurs on December 20th. On December 25th, the Clippers announced that George had suffered a torn ulnar collateral ligament, UCL, in his right elbow. On March 29, 2022, his first game back from injury, George scored 34 points with 6 assists and 4 steals in a 121-115 comeback victory over the Utah Jazz. On April 9th, George tied his career best with 12 assists and added 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 steals in a 117-98 win over the Sacramento Kings. 2022-23 season. On October 22, 2022, George scored 40 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, and had 6 assists in a 111-109 win over the Sacramento Kings. It was the 20th time in his career, including playoffs, where he scored at least 40 points and his 5th as a member of the Clippers. On October 31st, George put up 35 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 6 steals, and 2 blocks, alongside a game winner in a 95-93 win over the Houston Rockets. On December 14th, George recorded his 4th career triple-double with 17 points, 11 rebounds, and 11 assists in a 99-88 win over the Minnesota Timberwolves. On December 31st, George scored a season-high 45 points, along with 9 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals in a 131-130 loss against his former team, the Indiana Pacers. On March 5, 2023, George posted 42 points and 11 rebounds in a 135-129 win over the Memphis Grizzlies. On March 21st, he suffered a right leg injury in a 101-100 loss against the Oklahoma City Thunder with 4:38 remaining in the game. The next day, the Clippers announced that George was diagnosed with a right knee sprain and would be re-evaluated in 2 to 3 weeks, ending his regular season run. 2023-24 season. On October 28, 2023, George scored 36 points and went 15 for 15 from the free throw line in a 120-118 loss against the Utah Jazz. On December 2nd, George recorded 25 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and a game-winning three-pointer in a 113-112 win over the Golden State Warriors. On January 12, 2024, George scored 37 points on 12 of 18 shooting, 7 of 10 from 3, 6 of 6 from the free throw line in a 128-119 win over the Memphis Grizzlies. On January 16th, George scored a then-season-high 38 points on 15 of 24 shooting and 6 of 12 from 3, with 7 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 0 turnovers in a 128-117 win over the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Clippers were trailing by 13 by the start of the third quarter, and George scored 11 out of the final 14 points for the Clippers. On April 1st, George scored a season-high 41 points against the Charlotte Hornets on 14 of 21 shooting, going 8 of 12 from 3 and 5 of 5 from the free throw line in a 130-118 win. On April 7th, George scored 39 points with 23 in the fourth quarter, along with 11 rebounds and 7 assists in a 120-118 win, with George making the go-ahead bucket followed by a block in the final play. The Clippers were trailing by 26 points, which marked the greatest comeback in franchise history. In Game 3 of the first round of the 2024 playoffs against the Dallas Mavericks, George shot 3 of 11 and ended the game with 7 points with 5 fouls and a loss. In the following game, George had 33 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists, and 4 steals, with 26 points during the first half and a go-ahead corner three-pointer in the late fourth quarter. The Clippers lost the series to the Mavericks 4-2. On June 29, 2024, George opted out of his player option in his $48.7 million contract with the Clippers for the 2024-25 season, becoming a free agent. Philadelphia 76ers, 2024-present, 2024-25 season. On July 6, 2024, George, then 34 years of age, signed a 4-year, $212 million contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. With each of his previous jersey numbers, 24 and 13, being retired by the franchise, George elected to wear the jersey number 8 as a tribute to Philadelphia native Kobe Bryant. The George signing gave the 76ers a star trio of George, center Joel Embiid, and guard Tyrese Maxey. The 76ers were expected to be contenders for the 2025 NBA championship. George struggled with injuries and ineffectiveness in the 2024-2025 season. He missed the first 5 games of the season after being diagnosed with a bone bruise from a hyperextended knee during the preseason. On November 4th, he made his 76ers debut, putting up 15 points, 5 rebounds, and 4 assists in a 118-116 loss to the Phoenix Suns. On December 16th, George put up 33 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, 2 steals, and 1 block in a 121-108 win over the Charlotte Hornets. He also made 6 three-pointers and surpassed Jason Terry for 10th in all-time three-pointers made with 2,285. On December 28th, in a game against the Utah Jazz, George surpassed Vince Carter for 9th in all-time three-pointers made with 2,291. On March 17, 2025, it was announced that George would miss the remainder of the season due to adductor and knee injuries. In 41 games, George averaged 16.2 points, 5.3 rebounds, and 4.3 assists per game. At the time the announcement was made, the 76ers had a 23-45 record. George's season was described as disappointing and disastrous. 2025-26 season. On July 14, 2025, it was announced that George had undergone an arthroscopic procedure on his left knee to treat an injury suffered during a workout. On January 31, 2026, George was suspended for 25 games for violating the NBA's anti-drug policy by taking improper medication. Player profile NBA.com lists George's height as 6 feet 8 inches, 2.03 meters, while the Indianapolis Star reported in December 2011 that he grew 2 inches, 5.1 centimeters, to 6 feet 10 inches, 2.08 meters. He entered the league as a shooting guard, but was later moved to the small forward position with the emergence of Pacers shooting guard Lance Stephenson. Stephenson's improvement as a facilitator and distributor in the backcourt allowed George to play off the ball more often during games. Early in his career, he was unable to create shots for himself and lacked a great deal of ball handle, something he worked on with trainer Jerry Powell during the 2012 offseason. With all-star swingman Danny Granger injured during the 2012-13 season, George took on a larger offensive responsibility, which resulted in the NBA Most Improved Player Award. George has established himself as one of the best perimeter defenders in the NBA. In addition to his athleticism, he has developed a reputation as a high flyer by participating in the 2012 and 2014 Slam Dunk Contest. Following the Pacers' win over the Denver Nuggets on February 10, 2014, Nuggets head coach Brian Shaw called George the best two-way player in the game. George's rapid improvement led Pablo S. Torre of ESPN to dub him the NBA's most anomalous superstar, while stating, "Has anyone in the NBA ever become better, faster than Paul George?" In August 2014, it was announced George had changed his uniform number from 24 to 13, giving him the more marketable moniker of PG-13. He then donated all of his old jerseys to his high school in Palmdale, California. Personal life, George is married to former stripper Daniela Rodgick. He once dated the daughter of Coach Doc Rivers, who he later cheated on with Rodgick. They were engaged in November 2020 and got married in June 2022. Together, they have 2 daughters and a son named after him. George is the co-host of a podcast called Podcast P with Paul George, with actor Jackie Long and AAU teammate Dallas Rutherford, with NBA players such as Jalen Green, DeMar DeRozan, Karl Anthony Towns, and Alperen Sengun making guest appearances on the show. George signed with Nike as a rookie and had a signature footwear and apparel line from 2017 to 2022. In 2024, George announced that Nike would re-release his earlier sneaker models.